Hi, everyone. I'm Melissa Malzkuhn, Director of the Motion Light Lab at Gallaudet University in Washington, D.C. Thank you for having me here to take part in this conference. I'll be talking today about signing avatars. Specifically, I'll be discussing fluency, comprehensibility or ease of comprehension, and acceptance, as indicated by the community liking them, using them, and being beneficial to the deaf community. Those are the three themes I'll address in this talk. But before I get into those topics, I'd like to offer some background and introduce myself, including how I got into motion capture and signing avatars. I first started the Motion Light Lab, or ML2 for short, in 2009. I started it with the goal of combining creative literature and creative inquiries with digital technologies to create immersive learning experiences that would benefit the deaf community and deaf children in particular. We started with bilingual storybook apps in ASL and English that support deaf children's literacy development. Our work really grew in that area, and the storybook apps are still being produced, some by teams in other countries. Globally and locally, we train people how to make their own storybook apps. It's the largest program we have. We also do a number of other projects, one of which is the lab's other major line of work, motion capture, in order to develop signing avatars. That's a big part of our lab. Really, what drove this interest and the reason for doing this work is that we had substantial support from VL2, Visual Language and Visual Learning, which is a large research center. VL2's investigations and findings focus on how deaf children learn through the visual modality. Their extensive research helped us in making various resources and tools that benefit all learners, especially deaf children. Ultimately, the core of our work is language access, signed language access, from the signer's perspective. I am deaf, third-generation deaf, so I was born and raised in a signing environment. My team is also predominantly deaf. The lab is truly deaf-led. We bring a firm foundation in deaf culture and values, which is instilled in our work and informs the kind of impact we want to make. We care deeply about deaf children and want to make high-quality resources that they can enjoy and learn from. That is why signing avatars have such huge potential. The whole field and the content that can be made, I see remarkable opportunity for and advantages to using signing avatars. It can be used as an accessibility tool for translations with machine learning and AI. It certainly has value as an accessibility tool. Also, it allows for more content development, which will benefit deaf children. So far, our work has relied on film. We have one narrator who tells a story in a signed language, which is still phenomenal and will certainly keep doing that. But if we used a signing avatar, the possibilities would be endless for characters and their appearances. They could be more colorful, more artistic, all of which would appeal to young children. It'd be really nice to have a broader range of resources and a wider variety to offer. Also, I see avatars as critically important for representation. Now, with the metaverse, virtual and augmented reality, technology is changing rapidly, which is exciting, but where are signers in that space? Where are deaf people? As technology advances, it's become increasingly sound-based. We need a team of people who are passionate about developing sign or creating signing tools so that deaf people have a role in that new space. Truly, the 3D digital space still needs to have sign representation and deaf representation built in. These are some of the many reasons that keep me and my team working so hard in this field. I started my lab in 2009, but we started with signing avatars a bit later, in 2014. That year, I was part of a research team that got grant funding to set up our first motion capture system. Back in those days, we only had 8 cameras, but we were still ambitious. We set it up, started working with it, and we have really come a long way. In the beginning, we faced a lot of hurdles. Back then, our system uses Vicon cameras, which are top of the line, but they were designed to capture more of the bodily movements, while the hands were limited to gross whole hand movements. An open hand, a wave, a thumbs up, that kind of thing, which was way too basic for us. We wanted finger spelling and detailed joint movements. So we put additional markers on the gloves, one on each segment of each finger for a total of 20 markers per hand. We really maxed it out. The system typically took 50 to 60 markers for the whole suit. We were using almost double. The face was an issue too. Even in the early days, we knew that the eyes were important. And although the mocap system could capture the head and shoulders, it couldn't capture the eyes. At the time, our solution was to put markers on the eyelids to capture blinking. Having markers on your eyelids is pretty uncomfortable, but we tried it, and the capture was better. Blinking is a key part of signing, which makes sense. You never see people signing without blinking. It'd be beyond monotone. You have to blink to punctuate, but the eye gaze is important too. That had to be done in post-production with animation. Finally, after a while, we added faceware, which was a wonderful technology integration. With the addition of faceware, we could capture facial expressions, which made a huge difference. Up until then, our work had kept encountering the limits of the technology, but this removed some of those limits and led us to new breakthroughs. Also, our cameras, we've gone from 8 to 18 over the years, and we have faceware integration. We just produced a project called Dimensions, which we sign like this. Dimensions is a 3D story with a 3D signing avatar who tells that story. We're excited to share that we won Best in Animation at the Clin d'Ol Festival in France just this past summer, which was a major milestone for my team. We're all super pumped. We had 3 goals in making Dimensions: fluency, which was the top priority, telling a story that people could enjoy watching for a long while without getting annoyed or distracted by the avatar quality. We wanted the viewing experience to be natural. That was the second goal. The third goal was to impart deaf culture, values, and heritage in that story. So our intent behind Dimensions was threefold, and I'm happy to say that we accomplished all 3 goals. With our more advanced system, it's made such a difference in our work. I'd like to show you some snippets of Dimensions. Take a look. We'll release the full video in the near future. Right now, we're in the film festival submission phase. When that's done, we'll release the whole film. We do still want to make more episodes to continue telling that story. We also want to thank Sorensen Communications for their support in funding this project. The topic of fluency is so important, which is why it remains our highest priority. Fluency to me is the same as quality. You can't have one without the other. Having language fluency is to be of highest quality, and also with quality, signing is so clear that it increases comprehensibility. I want to see deaf people watch an avatar say anything in a signed language and be able to understand with ease. Currently, many avatars out there require a lot of effort from the viewer, filling in the blanks and doing some guesswork to make sense of what the avatar means. That's not what we're doing. We want avatars whose movements are so natural that watching them would be just like watching a storyteller on film, with the same level of linguistic integrity. We are getting close, but by no means are we done. There's still much more to do. Also, I have this concept that I firmly believe in, which is to achieve that level of fluency, we have to pass what I call the deaf eye test. It's true that deaf people who are born and raised in a signing environment can tell if something's off. Whether it's the eye gaze, the blinking, or if the sign movements are overly computerized, we can tell. Deaf people do notice those things. So, how do we know when we've achieved fluency? When we pass the deaf eye test. When deaf people can watch and understand an avatar effortlessly, we can say our work is done. Honestly, though, I hope this topic becomes obsolete. As technology advances, our work will improve accordingly, and the topic will be a non-issue and a thing of the past, or so I hope. Also, because the field is really small, you end up seeing the same people in the field, we have a huge responsibility to remain uncompromising in our standards and not settle for less or put a subpar avatar in contexts that are inappropriate. We have to be steadfast in pushing for the quality and precision that people in our communities will accept. I'd like to mention a study by the Action and Brain Lab, led by Dr. Lorna Quant, who's also the science director of ML2. The two of us have worked on several projects together. In this study, her team looked at different types of avatars. Computer synthesized avatars versus mocap avatars. There was also a filmed human condition for comparison. They showed the stimuli to a bunch of deaf people who varied in their age of acquisition of ASL. According to this study, they found that those who learned ASL early in life had negative impressions of the computer-synthesized avatars and a strong preference for the mocap ones, which were rated as more natural-looking and grammatically accurate. Those who learned ASL later in life were more accepting of all the avatars. Overall, the study's findings are a testament to the deaf eye. Deaf people who grew up using ASL or any sign language since birth or in early life are particularly attuned to the quality of avatars and prefer mocap-based avatars for language fluency. I thought the study and their findings were interesting, so I wanted to bring it up. Again, that reinforces that in this field, our work and how we have to uphold our standards is crucial. I also want to talk about other work my lab is doing. One project I'd like to discuss is called SAIL. It's short for Signing, Avatars, and Immersive Learning, SAIL. Our goal is to design and develop a system. I should add that this is only a prototype. To have a VR experience in which a person could wear a VR headset and encounter an avatar teacher to learn ASL in a virtual reality. Logical, right? ASL is a 3D spatial language, so why not learn ASL in a 3D environment? We're still developing prototypes, and all of this work is funded by the NSF, the National Science Foundation. We're now in our 4th year of what will be 6 years of working on research and development. We learned that, interestingly, new signers, people who have never signed before and are just starting to learn, seem more comfortable with a game format or signing in VR without the pressure of signing in front of classmates or feeling self-conscious about their skills. Apparently in VR, there's more room for practicing. So the potential is certainly there. Now, at the same time, we've also encountered some limitations. For example, the headset. How do you sign with such a bulky device on your face? So there are some limitations, but we'll see how it goes and develop it further. The idea of signing is that you try to produce something, and embodied cognition tells us that the more you sign, the more likely you are to remember it. Our research has a lot of powerful potential and implications for what else could be developed. Learning tools for a broad audience. It's very exciting. I've discussed fluency and comprehension. Now I want to address my third and final topic, community uptake and use. I've noticed since the inception of this field, there's been a lot of excitement about signing avatars, but a lot of the framing has been about being a tool for access, which gives me pause. Of course, I do see its potential. With AI and machine learning, there is no question that it could be a great tool for translation once we have a large enough data set available. Then automated translations would be incredible, but we aren't there yet. We're still in development. There's still more work to do. Translations still aren't accurate. It's all far too incipient for signed languages as compared to spoken languages. Siri, Alexa, and other voice assistants have over 20, 30 years of research behind them and are far ahead of where we are with signed languages. We're just getting started. We need data, a lot of it, and different kinds of it. It's just still too new. And I think the deaf community is a little skeptical. The technology is new and comes with concerns of being imposed upon the community as an accessibility tool in lieu of live interpreters. I think the community is wary because we have a long history of bad experiences, including present-day issues of inappropriate use of VRI, video remote interpreting, in hospitals and medical settings. There are advantages and disadvantages to it. An advantage is that it creates availability in rural areas, so VRI is an acceptable option, but it can still create issues. If a patient prefers to have an in-person interpreter in some situations where it's better to have a live interpreter present than use VRI. But because of its label as an accessibility tool, sometimes it's forced upon deaf people, and the community becomes reluctant to use it. The same goes for avatars. If they're forced on the community, they'll respond in opposition. So I see and feel just how serious the topic of access is. I strongly encourage those in this field to think carefully about that. It may be appealing to funders and tempting to jump right in, but think about who really pays the price. Who bears the burden? Hearing people or deaf people? It's always deaf people who suffer, which I won't abide by. Instead, I encourage those working in this field to think more about gaming, content development of various kinds, media experiences, and the like. Once we build fluency in those arenas and people see what's possible, when the technology is more ready, then it can become a good tool for access for sure, but not now. At some point down the line, after more development. That's my take on it. Also, I want to point out that signing avatars can be so beneficial for deaf children. My lab did some work that really focuses on language play with several characters. We made short proofs of concept, and the community's response was overwhelmingly positive. People said they want more of it. That kind of reaction tells us that there's a big future in this. Before I close, I want to mention one other project that we're excited about. The Motion Light Lab is partnering with Pigmental Studios to develop a TV series called Here Comes Mabo. The main character is from our first storybook app, the Baobab. The little girl featured in that book will now star in her own TV show in ASL in full 3D. We're very excited about it. It's currently in development, and we anticipate a 2024 release. To wrap up the talk, I'll reiterate that the field of signing avatars is very exciting. It's still so new, and those of us in the field are so interconnected. So we have the advantage of being able to coordinate our efforts, support each other, and move the bar upward to raise our standards ever higher. Really, in the long run, this will be incredibly beneficial to our community. As I love to say about my lab, we are designing the future, and we, all of us here, are designing the future together. Thank you. Hi, my name is Mavo Kelly, but you can call me Mavo.